The small wooden house at the edge of the Vermont forest had been Eleanor's sanctuary for 6 months. 6 months since she signed the divorce papers, and only 2 weeks later, lost her mother to heart disease. These compounded losses drove Eleanor, a 42-year-old freelance graphic designer, to leave the bustling city in search of a quiet place to heal her soul. The inherited house from a distant aunt had become her perfect refuge. Vermont autumn brought cold winds and sudden stormy nights. On one such night, as rain pounded the roof and wind whistled through the cracks, Eleanor heard a strange sound from the garden behind her house. At first, she thought it was just the wind, but then the sound repeated itself, a small, weak cry filled with desperation. Eleanor put on her raincoat, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped outside. The light swept across the sodden garden, stopping at a damp pile of leaves beneath an old oak tree. There she saw them, a female bobcat, her brown striped fur soaking wet, trying to protect something with her body. The animal had a small wound on her hind leg, possibly from a broken branch. Beside her, a much smaller creature trembled, a baby owl, feathers drenched, large round eyes looking at Eleanor with terror. The strange thing was that the bobcat did not run away when she saw Eleanor. Instead, she looked at her with what Eleanor would later describe as eyes blending desperation and hope. The baby owl appeared to have fallen from a nest high in the oak tree, and for some reason, the bobcat was protecting him. Eleanor hesitated. Logic told her to call Wildlife Protection Services, but her heart urged her otherwise. In the eyes of the bobcat, she recognized the loneliness and desperation she herself was experiencing. Standing in the cold rain, Eleanor made her decision. She returned to the house, took a large plastic container, lined it with an old blanket, and gently returned to the garden. The bobcat watched as Eleanor placed the container down and stepped back a few paces. To her surprise, the animal seemed to understand her intention. She gently pushed the owl into the container, then jumped in herself, her eyes never leaving Eleanor. Eleanor carefully lifted the container, feeling the faint warmth from the 2 lives inside, and brought them into the small shed attached to her house. The shed had an old stove Eleanor had never used. She lit a fire, creating a warm space, and placed a bowl of water along with some food, raw chicken from the refrigerator for the bobcat, and some minced meat for the owl. She did not know if she was doing the right thing, but she knew she could not abandon them in the stormy night. That night, Eleanor could not sleep. She spent time researching online about how to care for wild bobcats and owls. According to what she read, the relationship between these 2 species in nature was predator and prey. Yet here they had a different connection, perhaps due to special circumstances, or perhaps because of something deeper that humans could not understand. The next morning, when Eleanor gently opened the shed door, she found both had eaten the food and were curled up together. The bobcat raised her head alertly but showed no signs of aggression. The little owl still trembled, but his eyes no longer held the fear they had before. Eleanor decided to name them. The bobcat with amber eyes and a mysterious, calm demeanor, she called Luna. The small owl with curious eyes and a wise appearance, she named Oliver. In that moment, under the early morning sunlight streaming through the small shed window, Eleanor had no idea that this encounter would change her life forever. The first days were not easy. Luna refused to eat anything Eleanor brought, only drinking a little water and curling up to protect Oliver. The wound on her leg did not seem serious, but clearly caused pain. Eleanor spent hours sitting quietly in the shed, just reading or working on her laptop until Luna gradually became accustomed to her presence. Oliver was weaker. The baby owl could not fly. One of his wings seemed slightly injured from falling from the nest. Eleanor researched everything she could about caring for baby owls and learned they needed a special diet and careful attention. She began mincing fresh meat, mixing it with vitamins and minerals, then patiently feeding Oliver bit by bit. It was strange how Eleanor realized that caring for these 2 wild creatures had created a new routine in her life. Before, her days passed aimlessly. Sometimes she forgot to eat or lay in bed all day because her sadness was too great. Now she woke up every morning with a clear purpose, caring for Luna and Oliver, monitoring their recovery, researching more about their needs. After 2 weeks, Luna began eating from Eleanor's hand. At first, just small pieces of chicken. Then, gradually, the bobcat accepted more types of food. Her wound was healing. Eleanor did not dare give Luna antibiotics for fear it might harm her, but she used natural methods, gently cleaning the wound with salt water and applying aloe vera leaves from the plant she grew in her house. Oliver progressed faster. After 3 weeks, the owl could flap his wings and jump onto high objects in the shed. His large, round eyes followed Eleanor's every movement with curiosity rather than fear. Each night, Oliver stayed up late, eyes shining in the darkness, and Eleanor often found herself sitting with him during sleepless nights, two lonely creatures sharing the silence of the dark. The most surprising thing was the relationship between Luna and Oliver. The bobcat cared for the owl as if he were her own child. She licked his feathers, let the small owl curl up beside her when sleeping, and always made sure Oliver ate first. Eleanor wondered if under normal circumstances, Luna might have considered Oliver a meal, but fate had brought them together in a different situation, both vulnerable, wounded, and in need of help. Eleanor began documenting their journey. First just short notes about Luna and Oliver's eating habits and recovery. But gradually, these notes became a detailed diary of daily life and the small changes she noticed, both in the two animals and in herself. She realized she was smiling more, taking walks in the forest, and had begun to care about the world around her again. Every morning, Eleanor woke early to prepare food for Luna and Oliver. Every afternoon, she sat near them reading or working, letting them get used to her presence. And every evening, she told them about her day, about memories with her mother, about the marriage that had ended. Luna often looked at her with understanding eyes, and Oliver sometimes jumped up to perch on her shoulder when she talked. 6 weeks passed and a noticeable change had occurred. Luna's wound had completely healed. Her fur was glossy and her eyes shone with confidence. Oliver could now fly short distances within the shed, his wings growing stronger each day. And Eleanor, for the first time in many months, felt genuine joy when waking each morning. She began renovating the garden behind the house, creating a space that was half natural, half protected, where Luna and Oliver could gradually get acquainted with the outside environment. She built a shelter, dug a small pond, and created hiding places from branches and leaves. She was not sure if she could keep them forever. They were wild animals after all, but she wanted to prepare for all possibilities. One day, while Eleanor was working in the garden, she discovered Luna watching her from the open shed door. The bobcat hesitated a moment, then gently stepped outside, the first time voluntarily leaving her safe shelter. Oliver perched on Luna's back, as if they had agreed on this adventure together. Eleanor stood still, holding her breath as Luna carefully explored the garden, smelling flowers, touching the water in the small pond. That was the moment Eleanor realized that her healing path and that of these two creatures had become intertwined, inseparably. Just as Luna was gradually opening up to the outside world, Eleanor was learning to step out of her shell of grief and loneliness. Just as Oliver was learning to fly with wings that had once been injured, Eleanor was learning to trust in her ability to start anew. As Vermont winter approached, Eleanor had established a solid routine with Luna and Oliver. Each morning she opened the shed door, and the three explored the garden together. Luna had become more confident, sometimes venturing to the edge of the forest before returning. Oliver now flew well, often perching on high branches and observing the world from above. Eleanor began to worry that one day they might not return. That was natural, she knew, but the thought of losing these strange friends made her heart ache. At the same time, she also knew that keeping them when they were healthy would be selfish. True love, she had learned, sometimes meant letting go. One morning, while Eleanor was working in the house, she heard an unusual call from Oliver outside. Looking through the window, she saw a larger owl perched on a nearby branch. Oliver was flying around, making sounds Eleanor had never heard before. It seemed a new friend, or perhaps a mate, had appeared. Luna had also noticed the new visitor. The bobcat sat quietly under the tree, watching Oliver and the new friend with an expression Eleanor could only describe as proud, yet sad. It was like a mother watching her child grow up and ready to enter a larger world. Eleanor knew what was about to happen. She had prepared herself for this moment, but it still hurt. She sat down beside Luna, gently touching her soft fur. The two friends together witnessed Oliver flying higher and farther with the new friend, until they disappeared into the deep forest. That evening, Eleanor prepared dinner for herself and Luna in a somber atmosphere. A part of her had gone with Oliver, but she also felt a gentle joy knowing the little owl had found his own path. Luna lay near her feet, thoughtful eyes looking toward the window where moonlight illuminated the garden. After midnight, when Eleanor had fallen asleep, a soft sound woke her. It came from the bedroom window, left slightly open to welcome the cool autumn air. Eleanor opened her eyes and saw a familiar silhouette perched on the windowsill. Oliver had returned, his large, round eyes gleaming in the moonlight. The owl jumped into the room, flew around once, and perched on the bookshelf near Eleanor's. Today, Luna, who had been sleeping at the foot of the bed, raised her head and made a soft sound of welcome. Oliver responded with his own small call, then began preening his feathers as if he had just gone out for a short while, not flown away with a new life in the wild. Eleanor could not hold back tears. Perhaps Oliver had found a mate, but he still chose to return to this strange family each night. He had found a way to live in both worlds, freely flying in the forest, yet still bonded with Luna and Eleanor. The days that followed brought a new rhythm. Oliver left each early morning, sometimes with his owl friend, and returned each night. Luna gradually expanded her territory, exploring deeper into the forest, but always returning before sunset. Eleanor began connecting with the outside world more, first with short trips to the nearby town, then to meetings with distant neighbors. One night, when winter had truly arrived, with snow covering the forest thickly and temperatures dropping significantly, a major storm hit. Wind howled through the branches, snow and hail beat against the windows, and Eleanor anxiously watched the clock. It was late, but Oliver had not returned. Luna also sensed something was wrong. The bobcat paced in front of the door, her eyes constantly looking out the window. As the storm grew stronger, Luna began to call out, a sound Eleanor had never heard before. A long call, almost a howl, full of worry and urgency. Eleanor knew she could not sit still. Despite the danger, she decided she must search for Oliver. She put on her warmest clothes, took a flashlight, and prepared to go outside. Luna seemed to understand her intention, and to Eleanor's surprise, the bobcat stood beside the door, ready to accompany her. They stepped into the stormy night, wind blowing snow into their faces like tiny needles. Eleanor shone the flashlight into the forest, calling Oliver's name, while Luna went ahead, her nose close to the ground as if searching for a familiar scent. After nearly an hour of searching in harsh conditions, Eleanor was almost ready to give up. She was soaking wet and freezing cold, and her fear for Oliver grew stronger. But suddenly, Luna stopped, ears perked up. A faint cry echoed from a distance, almost drowned by the sound of the wind. Luna immediately dashed toward the sound, Eleanor struggling to follow, wading through deep snow. They reached an old oak tree where a large branch had broken due to the strong wind, and there, trapped under the branch, were Oliver and his owl friend, both soaking wet and shivering. Eleanor gently lifted the branch while Luna approached the two owls. Oliver, though weak, still managed to fly up and perch on Eleanor's shoulder. His friend was initially frightened, but after Oliver made reassuring sounds, she also allowed Eleanor to gently pick her up. The journey home took place in silence, with only the sound of wind and snow as background. Eleanor felt a strange warmth. Despite the cold, a feeling of completeness and clear purpose. Luna led the way, Oliver on her shoulder and the new friend in her arms. A strange family connected by something beyond words. Spring came to Vermont with warm rays of sunshine and the first flowers emerging from melting snow. Eleanor's house had now become a completely different place compared to a year before. The garden had been transformed into an ideal space for Luna, Oliver, and Oliver's new friend. whom Eleanor named Willow. After the stormy night, Eleanor realized she could not pretend that keeping these wild animals was completely legal. She decided to contact a local wildlife expert, Dr. Bennett, whom she had read about in an article on conservation work. Initially, Eleanor feared they would take Luna, Oliver, and Willow away. But Dr. Bennett proved understanding and sympathetic. After witnessing the special bond between Eleanor and the animals, as well as the unusual relationship between the bobcat and owls, the doctor helped Eleanor obtain special permission to continue caring for them, provided she would work with the local conservation center to ensure their health and welfare. Dr. Bennett even helped Eleanor improve the garden into a better semi-natural space for Luna, Oliver, and Willow. They built appropriate shelters, a safe hunting area for the owls, and ensured all three could still interact with the natural environment in their own way. Through Dr. Bennett's guidance, Eleanor began volunteering at the local wildlife conservation center. At first, she only helped with administrative tasks, but gradually she learned how to care for injured and abandoned animals. Her experience with Luna and Oliver had given her a unique perspective on the bond between humans and wildlife. At home, Eleanor began writing a blog about her experience with Luna and Oliver. She shared lessons about patience, trust, and healing that she had learned from these special friends. Her blog quickly attracted attention, not just for the unusual story of a bobcat and owls living together, but for the profound message about finding oneself again after loss. Each of Eleanor's posts was illustrated with photographs she took. Luna stretched out in the sunlight, Oliver and Willow perched on the branch near the window, the three creatures having dinner together in a peaceful moment. These images told a story of trust and love transcending natural boundaries, of finding family in the most unexpected places. Summer arrived and Eleanor had completely transformed compared to the woman who had entered this forest home a year ago. Her hair no longer looked unkempt. Smiles appeared frequently on her face, and her eyes shone with confidence and purpose. She had resumed taking graphic design projects, but now much of her work related to animal conservation organizations and environmental causes. One afternoon, as Eleanor sat on the porch working, she noticed Luna watching her from the edge of the forest. The bobcat was no longer the weak and injured creature Eleanor had met on that rainy night. Now she was a strong and confident adult animal, her striped brown fur gleaming in the summer sun. For a moment, Eleanor feared Luna might choose to lead her cub deep into the forest and not return. She had prepared for that, knowing it was natural and right for a wild creature. But Luna did not disappear into the deep forest. Instead, she slowly walked toward Eleanor, and beside her was a small creature, a bobcat cub. Eleanor held her breath. Luna had given birth, and she had chosen to bring her child to meet her. It was an invaluable gift of trust. Luna stopped at a safe distance, her cub hiding under her body. Eleanor did not move, only speaking soft words she knew Luna recognized. After a while, the mother bobcat gently nudged her cub forward as if introducing him. Eleanor felt tears welling up as she realized Luna had accepted her not just as a temporary caretaker, but as a member of her family. From the branch above, Oliver and Willow also witnessed this moment. The pair of owls had built a nest in Eleanor's garden, a neat nest hidden among dense pine branches. They were no longer weak baby owls, but healthy night hunters with strong wings and sharp eyes. But just like Luna, they had chosen to make Eleanor's house part of their territory. When autumn came again, Eleanor hosted a small gathering at her home. Dr. Bennett, a few staff from the conservation center, and some new friends Eleanor had made through her volunteer work. They sat in the garden, now a perfect semi-natural space, drinking tea and sharing stories. Luna and her cub observed from a safe distance, sometimes appearing when everyone had left and only Eleanor remained. During that gathering, Dr. Bennett suggested Eleanor write a book about her experience. Initially she declined, feeling not confident enough. But as winter came and the long nights grew quiet, Eleanor began to write. She wrote about the pain of loss, about loneliness and desperation. She wrote about the rainy night and the miraculous encounter with Luna and Oliver. And she wrote about the healing process, not just of the two wild creatures, but of herself. The book Companions from the Wild was published the following spring. It not only told the story of Luna and Oliver, but was also a profound reflection on love, loss, and how humans find meaning in life in the most unexpected places. The book quickly became a phenomenon not just in the animal conservation community, but also with readers seeking healing for themselves. Eleanor used part of the profits from the book to establish a small fund supporting the rescue and rehabilitation of injured wildlife. She also expanded her house and garden, creating a safer space for Luna and her small family, as well as for Oliver and Willow. 2 years after the first day she met Luna and Oliver, Eleanor stood on her porch looking out at the garden, transforming in the twilight. Luna and her cub were lying under the shade of a tree, enjoying the cool evening air. Oliver and Willow were preparing for their night hunt, preening their feathers and flapping their wings on a high branch, and Eleanor, no longer a broken and lonely woman, was smiling with a heart that had been healed. She knew that someday Luna might choose to lead her cub deep into the forest and not return. Oliver and Willow might find a new home farther from this house, and that would be fine. Because true love, as Eleanor had learned, was not about possession, but freedom. Freedom to go, freedom to stay, and freedom to find oneself in the process. But until that day came, Eleanor would continue sharing her space and her life with these special friends. They had taught her that family was not always defined by blood or species, but by love, trust, and connection. And in a world full of boundaries and divisions, that was perhaps the most valuable lesson. As the sun set and the first stars appeared in the sky, Eleanor no longer felt alone. She had found her family, a strange family, not following rules, but full of love. And in that love, she had found healing and a new beginning. From the high branch, Oliver made a soft call as a farewell before flying into the darkness. Luna raised her head, yellow eyes gleaming in the moonlight, and Eleanor knew that no matter where life took them, a part of them would always stay together, connected by that rainy night when 3 lonely souls found each other and began a healing journey together.